Welcome, all you sinners and sodomites, to episode 14 of Bible Stories for Atheists. I am Josh.
I'm Linz.
And we are your guides to the problematically pious stories, literally, littering the Bible. Yeah, we're continuing on with the Gospels, as we have been doing throughout season 2. This episode, we're talking about some healings that Jesus does.
Indignantly so.
Sometimes indignant healings that Jesus has to do.
Actually, you find out in this podcast that Jesus can get real kind of moody.
Yeah. Depending on which story you're reading.
He's got feelings just like any other person.
Yeah.
Except with magic.
He's just like any other magic person. Let's see, what else did we hit on? He goes on a rant.
Yes.
We hit this rant that he goes on where he lays out some of his special powers, like raising people from the dead or forgiving people.
Yeah.
Which apparently is a power.
It was a real sort of him just walking the countryside, just doing things to kind of prove that he's Jesus.
Yeah.
Really is kind of the feeling you get from the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yes, healing people is magnificent. I feel like you wouldn't have to tell, there's the whole subplot of, him going and eating dinner with sinners.
Right.
And, him having a rant. But really, with all of the healing going on, do you need all of that other shit? Doesn't it just muddy down the story?
Yeah.
Just a writer's note.
For the next one.
Yeah.
For the next Gospels that come. So I think we'll just dig into it. Why not?
Yeah. Let's get to it.
Just strap in and strap on for episode 14, Validating the Invalid. You good?
What are we doing? Who are we talking about today?
Jesus. As
He's
always.
The boy.
He's the boy. He's the boy at the well.
He's the boy who lived and then died and then lived again.
In theory.
He's like Harry Potter.
I don't know what I did. I'm like a.
You're getting real in your old age. You're turning into quite the Luddite.
Now it went back. Now I need to go back into it.
Oh my God.
Back into slideshow. How did I get to the camera? I just don't understand how I got there.
Yeah, that's weird. There must be a button on there that you accidentally hit.
Yeah. So if you remember, last time we talked, which actually has been a while, with the way that the holidays kind of worked out, it was a while ago that we recorded the episode 13.
Mm-hmm.
But if you recall, last we left off, Jesus was kicking off his misadventures and everything in being Jesus.
Yes.
And he was out healing people and driving out demons and such.
He met a lady by a well.
Yes, met a lady by the well. And then he went off to the solitary place. You think he was going off to take a shit?
Well, that is the likely scenario.
Right? Yes. And then
poor guy never gets a moment to himself.
I know. And then everybody had to go track him down.
I know.
Try and find him.
He's trying to poop.
Yeah. Matthew chapter 4 verses 23 through 25, and then Mark 1:39 both say that he preaches in Galilee next. However, Luke chapter 4 verse 44 says that he went on to preach in Judea next.
Galilee, just a refresher, is above.
It's north.
Yeah, Judea.
Right.
Okay.
It's north of Judea. Yeah. So basically the way it works out when thinking of the Old Testament, Judea is basically the region that was the southern kingdom of Judah, whereas Galilee, Samaria. I don't think it's Samaria because there's the Sumerians who were this ancient culture. I can't remember if it's Samarita or Samaria.
I think that's my fault because last time we talked about this, I mentioned Samaritas, which is the old folks' home.
But they're called Samaritans.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I'm kind of thrown off by it. Anyway, that region is also right by Galilee. It's between Judea and Galilee. So that's sort of the northern kingdom anyway. too. So blah, blah, blah. Anyway. So my point, though, is we get different stories on where they go after where we left off. But we did cover the next passages in the 12th episode, which was where he gathers the disciples and everything. There are very different stories, on how that goes. But if you wanted to see what happened next, we accidentally covered that in the 12th episode. Since then, we've set up a new system for how to organize the stuff. I'm using this timeline to go through these stories and everything to try and not miss anything. And the next stories that we're talking about today mostly all agree on the timeline across the Gospels, but there's one big discrepancy. According to Luke, the stories we're about to cover come before the Sermon on the Mount. Whereas in Matthew, they come after the Sermon on the Mount.
On the Mount?
Yes.
On the mountain?
It's called Sermon on the Mount, but
yeah,
but it's basically a mountain. In theory, I don't even know how big of a mountain this mount is.
A mount is like something you ride, right? A horse is a mount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard mountains called mount before.
Have you?
Yeah.
In the Bible?
I think beyond the Bible. And now I'm questioning it, though.
I mean, a lot of your childhood was filled with stories based around the Bible. So I'm going to go ahead and say it was probably Bible related.
I feel like more than just the Bible has called mountains
Never heard of a mountain referred to as a mount.
Like there was Mount Sinai, which also, again, was in the Bible.
Yeah.
Mount St. Helens.
Okay.
That's one that's not in the Bible.
Fair.
Should have been in the Bible.
Mount St. Helens.
I don't know why God never mentioned, hey, by the way, there's this mountain that's going to blow up one day and kill some people.
Kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nostradamus did a better job at that than Jesus did.
Oh, yeah. It's been really helpful. Depending on which gospel you're reading, these are coming either before the Sermon on the Mount or after the Sermon on the Mount.
Okay. And we will learn about what the significance of this sermon is when we get to that part.
Yeah, it's just to give you a brief idea of it. It's where I feel like Jesus mostly lays out his philosophies.
Okay.
Like the policies, let's call them, of Christianity.
He gets up on a high spot and starts preaching at people?
Yeah, basically. It's where it lays out, like, that's where the Beatitudes come in, where it's like, blessed are the peacemakers and such,
All right.
And other people.
And others.
Blessed are the peacemakers and other people. So the first story we're going to get into is a man with leprosy.
Okay. About a man with leprosy. Lepers. Yeah.
So this is in Luke chapter 5, verses 12 through 16, Mark 1, 40 through 45, and Matthew 8, 1 through 4. According to Luke's version, a leper sees Jesus and falls on his face.
Yeah.
Begging Jesus to heal him.
Of course, leprosy is terrible.
It is.
Also, his legs probably didn't work well.
That's mostly why he fell on his face. It's horrible that we're laughing at a leper.
He's not real.
Who probably didn't exist. Let's be honest. Jesus touches him and the guy is healed. Jesus then orders him not to tell anyone, but to go to the priests and offer sacrifices that Moses commanded for a cleansing as a testimony to them, which I'm guessing is to the priests.
Okay.
So weird conflicting thing, like don't tell anybody, but then also go to the temple and, offer sacrifices as a testimony to the priests.
Well, the priests will know what the sacrifices mean, but they won't know who did it or how it happened or even what he was cleansed of. Although if he's a well-known leper, I would imagine everyone will see him and be like, where'd your leprosy go?
He's a notorious leper.
The town leper.
Yeah. It does say right at the end, the last paragraph is, yet the news about him spread all the more.
Yeah.
So the crowds.
Because he had leprosy and then didn't.
Yeah. So that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sickness. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Right? So that's Luke's version of it.
Poor Jesus.
Yeah.
He sounds real depressed.
I know. It does sound really sad.
It
does. A way. Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, does he heal people by, like, sucking their illness inside of him?
You mean like the Green Mile?
Is that what he does in the Green Mile?
Yeah, where John Coffey, I think was his name, if I remember right.
Healed people by taking on the illness himself.
And then he spat out the gnats.
Oh my God. I don't know that I've ever seen The Green Mile, but it sounds like a Bible story.
It is. It actually is kind of based on Jesus.
Okay.
Like there's And actually, Tom Hanks, his character is based on a real person in the folklore of Christianity, where he was supposed to be the Roman soldier who pierced Jesus in the side during the crucifixion. And there's this weird thing. I don't really remember what the story is behind this, but there's this weird story about him where he ended up having immortality.
Well, he had the spear of destiny, yeah? Isn't that what that spear becomes?
I think so, yeah.
I learned that from Constantine.
I know.
Again, everything I know about religion comes from film.
Yeah, from film or comic books. Yeah, there's this weird story. It would be interesting to dig into that again, but yeah, I think that's kind of where Stephen King,
you guys on that sort of basis?
I was trying not to say Steven Spielberg. Who I think directed that. Anyway, not that any of that has to do with the gospel. Matthew's version of this story, though.
It does, because I was saying that's why because he sounds sad. I mean, why would you even put that in there? Like, people came to him, but he often retreated to solitary places. Yeah. And prayed.
I think
to who? His dad? He was just talking to his dad.
Yeah.
Dad, why do I gotta keep doing this?
Yeah. I think what they're trying to do is illustrate that he was getting hounded by people. Yeah. You know, he was a celebrity wherever he's going. Right. Yeah. Which they just keep reiterating over and over again throughout this, to the point where they're kind of just beating a dead horse, but
a dead leper.
A dead leper.
With its own leg.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Are you gonna cut that out later?
No, probably not.
Leprosy is terrible. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is. It's crazy that it's still a thing. Why did God do that? So Matthew's version is similar to Luke's, but he doesn't say anything about the crowds of people coming or Jesus staying in lonely places.
Okay. Yeah, because it's a real downer.
Yeah, I know. Mark's version is quite different, actually. It's kind of, it's got a totally different tone to it. It's like got an angry tone.
Okay.
Because Jesus was indignant when the guy asked him to heal him. Now, it's kind of unclear, was he indignant because of the guy asking him, or was he indignant at the disease itself, which the footnotes kind of suggest?
The footnotes of the Bible?
Yeah.
Because you don't want Jesus to come off as sounding indignant to helping somebody. Right? Not on this sort of story you've built around him.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when you actually look up, so indignant is the NIV translation of it, and I think there's a couple others that use the word indignant. But when you look up the comparisons of this verse at all the other versions of the Bible out there, most of them are like Jesus took pity on him. Jesus had compassion for him. There's a few, though, that say Jesus was angry, but not necessarily at him. You know? So it's this weird.
He's angry at God.
Yeah, I don't know.
For giving him leprosy.
Right. Something. I don't know. But it's just this weird thing where a bunch of different translations have chosen different ways of saying this. According to the NIV, of course, they're saying their version is right.
Of course, yes.
You know, who knows? And then the final paragraph has a different tone to it too. Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning. See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them. Instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news.
Oh my God.
As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places, yet people still came to him from everywhere.
I mean, that's canonically, like, that makes the more sense as a story, right? On why he's staying out in lonely places, because the guy went and opened his big fucking mouth.
Right.
But I'm also picturing Jesus being a bit of a mob boss and being like, don't you fucking tell nobody.
Yeah, break your fucking legs.
Do you want leprosy back? I took it away. I can give it right fucking back to you.
Bam. Leprosy and AIDS. You can get leprosy back unless You want me to protect you from it.
I require sacrifice of money into my pocket. And thus giving was created in the church.
Continuing on with the theme of healing, we come to a story of healing a paralytic at Capernaum. This is Luke 5:17 through 26, Mark 2:1 through 12, and Matthew 9:1 through 8. Mark's version goes like this. Jesus is in a house or a building of some type, and so many people are gathered around him that there's no room, and there's a crowd going all the way out the door. Okay?
Yeah.
And then these 4 guys come along to bring this paralytic man with them, and they couldn't get through the crowd, so they got up on the roof, and they dug a hole.
With a paralyzed man, they got up on the roof?
Yeah, and they dug a hole in the roof. And they lowered.
Sounds like he doesn't need help getting around.
Or he's got some really good friends.
I feel like they're doing this for themselves.
Yeah, maybe.
He's probably like, I'm cool.
Yeah. So they dug open a hole in the roof and they lower the mat the guy is on down into.
Okay.
Down right above Jesus, basically.
Wow, right.
Jesus sees their faith and says, "Son, your sins are forgiven," because, he's paralyzed because of his sins.
The weight of his sins made his legs not work.
That's what they don't tell you about masturbation. They
said it was hairy palms.
Yeah, they said it was hairy palms.
And really, your spine gets severed.
Yeah. I guess if you do it hard enough.
I think that's only when you try to suck your own dick.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's how he got paralyzed.
That sin does need to be absolved.
Right. Yep. Some, quote, teachers of the law, I'm guessing rabbis, are there, and they think he's blaspheming because only God can forgive sins. Immediately, Jesus knew in his spirit that this is what they were thinking in their hearts, and he said to them, "Why are you thinking these things? Which is easier to say to this paralyzed man, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, take your mat, and walk'? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." So he said to the man, "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of all of them. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this."
Okay. So I get the whole healing the paralyzed dude bit, right?
Yeah.
But first he says your sins are forgiven. But then you're saying that people there, rabbis, were assuming, you said teachers of law.
Yeah.
Which also could just be professors of law.
Big college town, Capernaum.
We're thinking, they didn't say it out loud. We're thinking, like, how can he do that? Only God can do that. And he says to them, stop thinking that. I'm saying his sins are forgiven because it's easier for me to say that than to tell him to get up and walk. Is that what that means?
I think the way I read it, I took it to mean he's saying, by saying this, I'm letting you know, because I can't just come out and say it for some fucking reason, that I have the ability to forgive sins.
Right.
Like ultimately that's what he's kind of trying to get across.
So, and this is the sexy healing, right? This is the healing that you see, like those
sexy healing.
Yeah, because whenever you see like the shimsham men who end up running churches, right? The ones that purport to be able to heal people.
Oh, I know. Faith healers.
Yeah. They're always shimsham men. You know, that old timey phrase, shimsham men.
I was thinking that it was like one of those products like the
ShamWow.
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 Yeah.
Because that's what they always do. They always heal somebody who can't walk.
Right.
I mean, that's the big sexy thing they do to prove that they're healers.
Right.
Because Jesus also did that. And they're not running to leper colonies trying to heal lepers.
Right.
Because they will get
leprosy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do that.
Right. But yeah, so this is kind of an interesting story about it, especially like what I think is interesting is some of the differences here. So like Luke's version, it's tiles on the roof. Not a big difference. It's tiles on the roof instead of like digging out the roof.
So they knock the tiles out of the roof.
It sounds like it. Yeah. It also says there's Pharisees and teachers of the law there. Matthew's version, they don't lower him from the roof at all. They just literally bring the guy to Jesus.
Okay.
And he heals him.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to that.
That's less impressive of a story.
The John story is completely different.
Oh, okay.
So this is the healing at Bethesda. And this is John chapter 5, verses 1 through 15. And I'm just going to read this out. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, a pool. The wording in this is really weird.
Yeah.
It's like old-timey wording. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid. Again, I'm quoting the Bible. I would never call somebody this.
An invalid?
Yeah, but they keep saying it.
Up until like 1985, they used to call, up until like 1995, they used to call people invalids.
Right, yeah. So anyway, this is the Bible saying this. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years when Jesus saw him lying there, and he learned that he had been in this condition for a very long time. He asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Nah," the invalid replied, "I'm good." That's just how
it says, "Nah, I'm good." Yeah, I know. That's why I left it there, because I'm like, I'm not reacting to that.
All right.
Wah, wah, wah.
So one thing that's interesting already to me about this is Jesus learned that he had been in this condition for a very long time. So apparently Jesus does not have all knowledge.
Right.
Is what this is telling us. It's just kind of important to point out, like, apparently Jesus did not know this person had been.
Do you think it's one of those scenarios where literally it is there? He just has to like Google search it?
I doubt it.
Like, because if you just knew everything all at once, that would be like,
yeah,
it would make you crazy. It might make you think that you could.
Not if you were God.
Heal lepers.
Yeah. Not if you were God. But
who did he learn it from?
I imagine the guy told him.
Oh, that he's been like that for forever.
Yeah. Anyway, so the guy responds, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me because they're dicks." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." Same thing that he said to the other guy. At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was the Sabbath. So the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath. The law forbids you from carrying your mat." But he replied, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" So they asked him, "Who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk?" The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you."
How does a man who can't move sin?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I picked up my mat on the Sabbath. I know we're not supposed to carry things on the Sabbath.
I don't think that was the sin, though.
But you told me to.
Right. The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who had made him well. That was the story.
Well, that closed up a nice little plot hole.
Yeah. So it's just interesting to me because it's a totally different story, but clearly it's based on the same story.
Which one do you think is better?
I think this one's better.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, than somebody being lowered down from a roof.
Yeah. I think John just literally knows how to tell a story better.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of logistical questions that I think I'm just not going to ask because they don't have anything to do with the story. Like, what's a sheep gate? Why are they stirring the water? If
I remember correctly, the sheep gate was literally where you would
keep your sheep.
Bring sheep in to the Jerusalem.
Right.
Like,
and
I think it's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, but like, did they have to bring the sheep in through? I just, anyway.
Yeah.
What's the pool for? Why does it need to be stirred? He said no one could help him down into the pool, and whenever he tried, people cut in front of him. And I'm like, is he rolling? Wouldn't he drown?
Right.
If he can't walk or move, like, wouldn't he drown once he got into the water?
Yeah.
If he's doing a little side roll Like, it was just a very confusing story.
Right.
But not really, but kind of. He healed him.
Yeah.
Good for Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, Jesus. Well done.
Well done. He just left all the other blind and paralytic and sick people that are all, I guess, hanging out around this pool.
Oh, yeah. He didn't do anything for them.
Yeah, he left them all there.
Yeah.
Just this one dude.
Yeah.
Because he had been invalid for so long.
Yeah.
You validated him.
Right. He just gave him validation. Linz, did you know that there's a global pandemic?
Don't try and make me wear a goddamn mask, you commie.
No. A pandemic of home invasions.
Oh, okay.
That's why we want to share Fair Game Security. They provide all of the preparedness you need.
Do they provide things like security cameras, smart locks, and motion sensors?
Nope. Their team of security experts will come to your home to disassemble any existing security system you have, as well as remove all the locks from your doors and windows. You don't even have to lift a finger.
Oh, I see. Because no matter how prepared you are, some people could still invade your home anyway. So why do anything to stop them, right?
That's right. If God says it's your time to have your house broken into, then who are you to stop him? Also, locks will give you 5G cancer or something.
Well, I'm not worried. I still have my guns. And wait a second.
You've got it. Fair Game's team will round up all the firearms in your house, even the ones you try to hide from them, and make sure you are left utterly defenseless.
Let me guess. I bet they take those guns and melt them down afterward.
Even better. They take them to, that part of town and hand them out for free.
At least they won't go to waste. But I live in a pretty safe neighborhood. I think anyone who would be looking for a home to invade wouldn't even consider trying my house.
That's why they provide bright green window stickers and yard signs, letting everyone know your house is fair game.
Use promo code BSFA at checkout to have your doors removed completely, because sometimes God wants raccoons to come in and eat your food.
Fair Game Security is only available in the continental United States, the only country where it's easier to sell people guns than give them free vaccines. So the next story is the Call of Levi. This is Luke 5:27-32, Mark 2:13-17, and Matthew 9:9-13. Mark's version goes like this. Jesus goes out to the lake, which is probably the Sea of Galilee. A large crowd forms as he's teaching. It says, as he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, Jesus told him, and Levi got up and followed him. Jesus goes to Levi's house for dinner. There are a bunch of tax collectors there and sinners there. And some Pharisees see this and ask his disciples why he eats with sinners. On hearing this, Jesus said to them, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. Right? Luke's version doesn't say anything about the lake or preaching to a crowd. Otherwise, it's pretty similar. Matthew's version, interesting difference. It says, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at a tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him.
Is this from the book of Matthew?
This is the Matthew version.
Oh, well, he wrote himself into the story, yeah?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Kinda. So I looked to see if there was a story of Jesus renaming Levi to Matthew, kind of like Simon Peter. Right. And I don't think there is one. At least I haven't found one. According to Matthew, the Apostles' Wikipedia page, Mark and Luke never explicitly equate Levi with the Matthew named as one of the 12 disciples or 12 apostles, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just accepted that this person is the same as Levi because of this.
Okay.
right? This
Sure.
is all that's based on. And you got to remember, Matthew wasn't actually written by Matthew.
Right. No.
Because all of the Gospels were anonymous. Nobody actually
Right.
gave their name
right.
according to any of this. So not only is it the only reason why we think Levi is the same as Matthew, it's the only reason why we think Matthew is the person who wrote this Gospel.
Because he named him Matthew.
Right.
Okay.
Another thing that's interesting about this, though, is that Mark's gospel actually says Levi is the son of Alphaeus, and Matthew's doesn't say anything about his dad, which is an odd thing, you know? Like, you would think he would be the one to be like, son of Alphaeus,
Right.
you know? So
Well, if you named the dad and it was the same name, then that would 100% equate Levi and Matthew as being the same person. So if Matthew's like Matthew, son of Alphaeus.
right, if they had both done that,
and it was Levi, son of Alphaeus, then clearly, like we got like a first name, second name thing going
unless
on
they were
here.
brothers, unless you want to be like, no, I did it.
True.
It wasn't Levi.
Oh, yeah.
That dumbass.
Right. A real sort of, what were those brothers that we talked about early on? The one was red.
Jacob and God, what is his name?
Does it start with a B?
No, I don't think so.
He was red and hairy.
Yeah.
Esau.
Yeah. Started with an E.
Esau.
Yeah.
B. E-B.
Yeah. It's kind of like those two.
Right. Except we're just making all of this up in our heads.
Yeah. I mean, so did they. So why not? It's as valid as of a story as the ones we're reading.
So they told this story because they wanted to make the point that Jesus hangs out with sinners because they need to be saved.
Right.
And he doesn't hang out with people who are not sinners because they're good.
I guess, although those people, the Pharisees and stuff, are actually not that good, according to him.
No.
Which is kind of a funny thing, too.
Yeah, and it's a real weird thing that, like, I mean, the whole point of Jesus is that he is going to be dying for our sins.
For everybody's.
Yeah. And that even if you think you're without sin, that you thinking that is probably a sin.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's a lot of rules.
Right.
You're probably breaking at least one or two.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, so the next story is called Questioned About Fasting.
Jesus is questioned about fasting.
Correct. Luke 5:33 through 39, Mark 2:18 through 22, and Matthew 9:14 through 17. Mark's version goes like this. John's disciples and Pharisees. Let me back up. John the Baptist's disciples and Pharisees are fasting for some unspecified reason.
Okay.
People come by and ask Jesus why his disciples aren't fasting. We get the first couple parables, and they're not great, right? So do you know what a parable is?
It's like Aesop's Fables, right?
Kinda. It's a
story with a meaning.
With a moral. Yeah.
So yes, exactly like Aesop's Fables.
Kinda, yeah. I've never read Aesop's Fables.
Oh, they all end with like a little like thing at the bottom that's like, here's what you were supposed to have learned from this story. Like the tortoise and the hare is a Aesop's Fable, right?
Right. Okay.
And you learn that slow and steady wins the race.
Right. So Jesus did not do the tortoise and the hare, which is sad. There's this convoluted analogy about wedding guests not fasting when a bridegroom is with them, but when the bridegroom is taken from them, then they will fast. Like, I don't know if, like, did they kill the bridegroom?
Right.
You know, like, so, like, I get the idea is people are going to mourn Jesus when he's gone, but why would they mourn him when he's there? I just don't get it. There's another convoluted analogy then saying that you don't put, this is kind of a classic one. I think you've probably heard of this before. You don't put new wine in old wineskins because it'll ruin the wine and the wineskins. I remember the message about this being told to me, basically meaning some people get stuck in their ways and they can't accept Jesus.
Okay.
You know?
You don't put new wine in old wineskins?
Right. So
well, that's not true. You can definitely put new wine in old wine barrels.
So with the barrels?
Yeah.
I mean, this is wine skins. So this is leather skins. So like literally, I just remember this from some sermon a long time ago. But the idea was that new wine would be putting off too much vapor, essentially like too much. It would like kind of expand the wineskin. And if it's an old wineskin, then it would crack the wineskin and spill everywhere, you know. But if you put old wine in an old wineskin,
it'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
So what does this analogy have to do with accepting Jesus?
basically, some people get set in their ways, and they're an old wineskin.
Okay,
and they can
this is what I need. This is what I need you to say.
They're an old wineskin, and they can only
they
take
can't
their
hold Jesus.
Old wine.
Right.
They can only hold their own,
or they'll
old
explode.
Wine.
If they let Jesus inside of them, they'll explode.
Yeah, I can't remember what the problem was with putting old wine in new wineskins, though.
There shouldn't be any problem with that.
But I think the pastor made up a reason.
All right. It's a bit of a forced analogy.
Yeah, it really is. It was not. Jesus has some good parables. These were not.
Yeah. Well, and also
best.
like we might not even really like that's how you learned what it was that he was trying to say. But he literally could have just been like, hey guys, we got wineskins exploding all over the fucking place and it's making a real mess.
What we don't know is there's actually a big problem with wineskins all around them.
I have to keep making
Stop asking me about fasting.
I have to keep making wine out of water because you guys keep putting new wine in old wineskins and it's just exploding everywhere.
He's got this whole enterprise he's trying to start up.
Put it in the new skins.
Nobody's talking about that, though.
We can afford it. It's fine. My dad is paying for it.
He's only going to pay so much, though. This has to work out. Otherwise, I'm not going to get my full inheritance. I'm going to go to my brother, James. Luke's version is pretty similar, except Jesus throws in this extra line about wine at the end, which I thought you would appreciate. And no one, after drinking old wine, wants the new, for they say the old is better.
Oh, I mean, that's true.
Yeah. Matthew's version, it's John's disciples, John the Baptist's disciples, coming to Jesus, asking why they and the Pharisees have to fast so often, but Jesus' troop doesn't. Besides that, it's pretty similar.
So do you think that they were celebrating Ramadan?
Is that
Jewish? You fasted. No, it's Muslim. You fast during Ramadan, though. I mean, it's from that part of the world.
Yeah, I mean, Jewish people have a bunch of
That's true, they do.
holidays where they fast.
Yeah, I feel like Ramadan is the most fastiest of all the holidays, though.
And reading the verse, you get the impression that this was something they just did. They just fasted.
Because they fast during every Sabbath, right? Don't they not eat from like a certain time on Friday until...
I believe so. I believe it's like sundown on Friday to sundown on
For as little as I know about Christianity, I know even less about Judaism.
Yeah.
I know they fast before Passover. And Catholics, they don't fast. Catholics give up something during the time before Easter.
Oh, Lent. Yeah.
Thank you.
They do. Well, so traditionally... you would fast. Not all Catholics do that nowadays. I don't think.
They give up a thing.
Yeah.
Internet or Facebook or
I remember
chocolate.
The most I know about Lent, though, actually comes from the movie Chocolat.
Chocolat?
Yeah. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like one you would have seen. Yeah. And I just remember them, like she sets up her chocolate shop in this town, this very Catholic town, right before Lent. And it's like
tragedy.
Worst timing possible.
Yeah, they don't eat chocolate during Lent.
Yeah. And somehow Johnny Depp is also there.
Fucking palms and ashes all over their forehead.
Yeah. Say palms and ashes all over their forehead?
Yeah.
They have palms on their forehead?
No, they carry Palm Sunday.
Oh, they
you
carry
actually
palms?
get a palm. Yeah, like a palm leaf.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Maybe not all Catholic churches do it, but I remember getting palm leaves.
Yeah. Well,
which is very exotic in Pellston, Michigan.
I imagine. That seems like a lot to distribute to all over the world.
Right.
You know. Anywho, the next story we're going to do is Bethesda continued. So this comes right after that story of the paralyzed guy.
Okay.
And this is in John chapter 5, verses 16 through 47. And Jesus goes on a rant.
Ooh. Ranty Jesus.
Yeah. So the Pharisees are pissed that he's performing miracles on the Sabbath, right? Like healing the guy.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're going to be pissed off about. You know, like that's a normal reaction to somebody healing people.
Yeah. Right.
It's
performing a miracle.
But you're doing it on a Saturday?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Jesus' excuse is that his dad works on the Sabbath, so why wouldn't he? You know?
I mean, that's a valid argument.
Yeah, God is still at work on the Sabbath.
Do they know at this point that he is purporting to be the Son of God? And they're still mad at him?
It's funny that you say that. So the Pharisees get pissed. He's saying God is his dad.
Oh.
Because somehow that makes him equal to God. Like, in their mind, that means he's equal to God.
Yeah.
So they start plotting to have him killed.
Wow.
Yeah. It's an interesting reaction in general.
It really is, because on the off chance that like he's right.
I mean, considering he's healing people, apparently.
Yeah, there's a good, if you're living in this reality.
Yeah.
And he is healing people.
Right.
If he's making a long-term invalid valid.
Yeah.
And then he's
validating the invalid.
Yeah. Then he's like, I'm the son of God. I mean, the odds are pretty high that that's true.
Right.
And if you are afraid of God, why would you plot to kill his child?
Right. I know. It's an insane reaction to this.
I just imagine that this is how the plot for the movie Taken started. And God's like, I have these special skills.
Yeah. I'm wondering how many of our episodes we can have Taken references in. Considering the last one was You Are About to Be Taken.
Liam Neeson is quite godlike.
That's true.
Especially if you hear about
he really
the size
should
of
play
his
God.
Penis. Yeah.
He has a God-sized penis.
He has a God-sized penis.
Anywho. So the Pharisees are all pissed.
Okay.
Jesus said God can raise the dead, so he can. These I'm kind of summarizing a bunch of.
I imagine.
He goes on this rant. I'm just going to summarize a bunch of points.
Thank you.
He says that God can raise the dead, and so therefore he can raise the dead.
Okay.
God, the Father, doesn't judge people, which, if you've read the Old Testament,
untrue.
Yeah, but he says he leaves that to Jesus.
Oh,
judgment to Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, he's just basically, he's trying to retire.
Yeah. God and Son.
Yeah. Ink.
Yeah. If you don't honor Jesus, then you don't honor God the Father. And here's a taste of what this stuff kind of sounds like. Very truly, I tell you, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life and will not be judged, but has crossed over from death to life. Very truly, I tell you, a time is coming and has now come when the dead...
You looking at your wrist like there's a watch on it really translates to an audio-only podcast very well.
That's a fair point. Yep. And has now come when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son also to have life in himself. And he has given him authority to judge because he is the Son of Man.
It's a bit all over the place. It sounds like he's just pulling it, like freestyling.
It's really like, these are the kind of verses where it's like, it's so... what the fuck is he talking about? That you could read whatever meaning you want to into this.
Well, the thing I heard that was like, oh, that's where Catholics got it, and maybe other religions, I don't know. But like Catholics used to believe like you shouldn't get cremated because eventually when
you're gonna rise from the dead.
In your fucking dead body.
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses believe that too.
Dead body though. So to me, that's where I'm like, I heard that and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where they get it from.
I remember when I was a little kid, like 5-6 years old, probably, my dad telling me, you're going to be in the ground, but then one day Jesus is going to come back and, he's going to resurrect your body and restore your body and everything. So that's why we don't do cremations and stuff like that. And I'm like, people aren't going to die? No, yeah. No, I go, but I remember asking him, like, well, what about people who like die in a fire?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like involuntary cremation, And he goes, well, God will just take all those pieces of them, like
but he
the
can't
ash
do
and
that
stuff.
if you've chosen to.
But it's like, and immediately I call him out on his bullshit. This is one of those things where I didn't feel like it at the time, but in retrospect, I was like, holy shit, that was a good call on my part. Man, I was really on top of it on that one.
It's because your brain had all its logical connections still.
Yeah.
We're like, literally, you just were asking questions because what you were hearing didn't make sense. You haven't been taught not to do that yet. I'm sure immediately after that, you were very much taught not to ask those sort of questions.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I remember going on a whole thing with my dad once when I was a little kid around the same age about how it was better to be a Christian than be a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, because your mom had left.
Yeah, this was long after my mom had already left.
Right. So you knew Christianity and
and I was going to church every week with my mom, So, and, that was a big problem with my dad. And I remember my dad smacking in the side of my face because I was not complying with his beliefs on this shit. And it was,
beating your children always makes them believe more.
I will say this, like, besides spankings,
right?
That's the only time he ever did anything
Clearly,
like that.
You offended him on a much more internal level with whatever it is that you said to him that he reacted like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if he felt bad about that. If he did, he never said so.
Right.
It's not like he was abusing me or anything like that. Just for the record.
He wasn't physically abusive.
No, just psychologically. I know. It's fine.
If we have any female listeners, I better watch out because you just made them all collectively go, "Oh, Josh."
It's fine. It's not about me. It's about Jesus. So anyway, he's going off on that rant. He goes on to say people are going to raise from the dead and go to heaven.
Yep.
Others are going to raise from the dead and go to hell. Which is a weird thing I never really thought of that, like, oh yeah, those people have to raise from the dead too.
I thought they didn't mention hell very often in the Bible, though.
Yeah, they don't mention it very often. Yeah. Well, I think they talk about it, but they never define it.
Right.
Really. Like there's a couple places where you get a little bit of definition where it's like, oh, it's this burning place or it's void of God and stuff like that. But so he goes on and on about God the Father being the one who sent him. And that John the Baptist was testifying about him. He said, I do not understand this wording, but it says, you have sent to John and he has testified to the truth. He goes, not that I accept human testimony, but I mention it that you may be saved. And this is a real like prissy way of saying this thing.
Yeah.
That
I don't need John's help, but it seems like you might believe John more than me for some reason. He's
testifying the truth. Not that I give a shit about human testimony, but you might.
Yeah.
And we come to the time when Jesus apparently is unaware that Moses didn't actually write the Torah. And he says in verse 46, if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. So Jesus apparently does not know that Moses, if you haven't listened to episode 10, you should totally do that. We lay out how we know that Moses did not write the Torah.
Right.
But yeah.
It's funny because I've built up this sort of like surfer dude vibe that Jesus has.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, right? Like he's walking around in the sandals and shit.
Yeah.
And
handing out joints to demon-possessed people.
Seems real chill, but he gets going in quite a few spaces.
Yeah.
I mean, he heals at a fig tree, which I don't know that we've covered.
We haven't covered that yet. I'm looking forward to it.
So it's still coming?
Yeah.
So he does this when he's old. I assumed he did it when he was like 8.
The fig tree thing?
Yeah.
No. He has disciples at that point. Yeah. Who react to it and stuff. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is Jesus isn't as chill as the figure I've built up in my head.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah. I mean, that's good, I guess. People have their limits, I guess.
Right.
There's this really great comic book that I think people who listen to this podcast may enjoy that's called Second Coming, and it's put out by Ahoy Comics. And what it is there's this superhero that exists, right? And it's doing superhero shit. And God sees this and is like, now that is what I want in a son.
Okay.
And he sends Jesus down to like learn from the superhero dude. And Jesus is real sort of like peace and love.
Kind of like if God sent Jesus down to learn from Superman.
Yeah, except the superhero is more like Homelander from The Boys.
Oh,
unless
okay.
Superman-y. Like he'll
crazy.
kill somebody. Yeah. He'll just kill villains and things like that. In one of the first comics, like they find themselves in a situation where they're like criminals inside of a building, and Jesus is like, let's go talk to him. And the superhero dude's like, pew, 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 with his eye lasers and just kills them all. And Jesus is like horrified by the whole thing.
Jesus is like, why didn't God give me eye lasers?
So it's a real interesting. It was supposed to actually come out from a different comic book company.
Yeah.
And they got so much shit for the concept of the book that they decided not to publish it. So this other comic book company, Ahoy, picked it up.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And it's pretty good. I haven't read the whole thing, but
kind of like when Dogma was coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're changing my viewpoint of Jesus, though.
Like, as I'm reading through these Gospels, coming across ones like the story of him healing the leper and
being
this
indignant.
this one Gospel where he's just pissed about doing it,
right,
and stuff. It's just like the wording of what he says and everything, it comes across way more harsh and everything.
It really humanizes him in a way, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because do you want your Jesus to be humanized?
Right.
He's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be better.
He's supposed to be.
So he shouldn't be like getting pissed at somebody.
It's definitely not how he's depicted.
Right.
In movies and stuff. Especially the old, I think it was the 70s version, English version of Jesus of Nazareth, where he's chill pretty much the entire time, and just very holy and all that.
Zen,
yeah. Anyway, so that's I think the episode for this week. So
right on.
Thanks to everybody listening, and they all lived miserably ever after.
I was like, you know how this closes. Why are you taking so long to say it?
Feels like sometimes I just need to be like, thanks to everybody listening.
You say that in the little wrap-up thing, though.
Yeah,
but at the end.
But, I mean, can I thank them enough?
Thank you. I'll say it because I never say it. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, there we go. And then they all lived miserably ever after.
Cut that shit together.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Let's be honest, I'll probably just leave it all in. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. Help us spread the good news and keep this going by sharing the show with a friend or leaving a review to help others find us. And we'll talk to you next time.
You have a very basic PowerPoint presentation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sort of PowerPoint presentation a psychopath would make.
Black and white?